This video is brought to you by TS4U IT Engineering Bootcamp. Are you looking for an IT bootcamp? In your journey with TS4U, you will get workshops and tasks every week, hands-on practice, technical tests and tasks, show and tell, mock interview. And we get paid fully only when you get a job. You can get affordable student loan. Become eligible for free tuition. We offer industry-demanding IT boot camps. Join now and start your IT engineering journey today with TS4U.
So how does Git facilitate the process of rolling back changes or undoing commits in a project?
Yeah, so we pretty much do that all the time. So we have lots of branches. Okay, so why do we use branches? Because we have used the Git flow. Okay, so that is a specific Git usage framework. So that actually sets a specific way that how we use Git in our environment. Okay, so all the developers actually need to follow the Git flow and make changes in the code base. All right, so it all actually starts with that. So in order to implement Git flow, we kind of need to have a lot of branches based on the feature, based on the release, and based on the hot fixes. Okay, so if you have a new hotfix that fixes a very tiny problem, you create a branch. And then if you are actually releasing a new feature, you create a feature branch. And then if you're releasing a version of the application, you create a release branch. Okay, so this is how we have our Git environment set up. All right, so in order to manage all of these stuffs, we actually have a lot of issues. How? Let's say we actually post some code onto a branch, and when we want to merge this branch with our master branch, it sometimes deletes some of the important codes from the master because the developer implemented the branch. He actually didn't consider the code on the master branch. So that's why sometimes we actually lose some of the important code functions from the master branch after we merge a code. So typically we have a CI/CD pipeline, and that pipeline runs each time we merge a branch with the master. Okay, so that pipeline actually checks that if all the test cases that we have, the unit tests and the functionality tests and the business development case, all the BDD tests and all the unit tests, if all of those tests are passed, and then we go for the merging. Okay, so since this is not the ideal case all the time, so even though we actually have our test cases passing, so sometimes we don't have test functions for some specific code options. So if that code actually is overwritten by the merge, then we have some issues. So like if we push that code on the staging branch and QA says, hey, I actually cannot pass this. Why? Because this thing doesn't work on my front end. And we say that, hey, this test actually passed, that's why we push the code. But then they says, hey, but this is not working. So then we want to find out that what happened. So we reach out to a dev and says, okay, this is what this should be, or this function should does this, but we cannot see the appropriate output. So and most of the time dev says, hey, this code shouldn't be here. So what happened is the developer worked on the feature branch. They accidentally deleted the main code base that he pulled from the master and overwrites it on his feature branch. So whenever somebody merges it, and if they doesn't notice, the newer version of the code actually deletes the required code blocks, and now we have a non-working version of that code. So in those cases, we need to revert those changes. Okay, so we have the option on the GitLab to revert commits. Okay, so we just choose, okay, this commit I want to revert, so we can just revert this from the the GitLab UI itself, or we can revert it with the git command on the developer's machine. We have the git revert command, right? So we can actually go back to any commit or any certain point of time for our specific project. So we ask the developer that, hey, you like overrode some of the codes here. So can you please just go back to this commit, and that should fix everything. So whenever the developer fixes the code and pushes it again to the master, we just take the code and run the pipeline to deploy it on the staging, and then the QS like checks again to see if the code is working now. Okay.